you know, they were always ahead in everything, even including like tournaments. Like, I don't know if you read this interesting uh, part about the history of Street Fighter Two. When Street Fighter Two hit Japan arcades, the players were just not playing together still. Like Capcom was like scratching their head,
What?
be like, "What? Like, what's going on?" Right? Like,
Yeah.
we designed this for,
CPU?
yeah, we designed this for people to play together. And okay, well, I guess let's try running a tournament. By sanctioned
Oh,
by
that's how it
Capcom,
began.
and they started to run tournaments in Japan, and people were like, "Hey, this is actually way better playing together." So it just
Yeah,
that
yeah.
yeah that kind of kicked off everything. So Capcom
Okay.
really pioneered getting the community aspect of Street Fighter Two to start,
That's
and
interesting. Yeah.
they've had national TV like programs and series on not just our arcade scenes from early Street Fighter 2, but even the SNES versions of the game and the
Oh,
console
yeah.
versions.
Yeah.
You go to America, we didn't have any of that. We didn't have
Yeah.
Yeah.
Capcom USA. Like, I think they did. Okay, I wasn't a part of this, and I didn't even go there. There was a Capcom sanctioned tournament which was called Bama, and then they had like
Okay.
even like a intermediate, beginners, and a expert entry event. Like, it was Tomo
Yeah.
won that one. Tomo won that one, and he won the pinball one. You gotta,
Oh, nice.
yeah. I don't know, dude. That's just way over my head, right? But
Okay.
Okay.
anyways,
Yeah.
there was there was no reason for Japan or the U.S. to even like think out of their regional bubbles. Okay,
Yeah.
because Japan was already Japan is Japan. Back then, an arcade, it was by every train stop and every segment of every. It was just a way of life over there. It was like, it wasn't
Yeah.
even shunned at. Salarymen played it, so it was just accepted. There was no reason for them to look at the other regions, and so this did not
Yeah.
happen until like, I would say, yeah, Alpha 3, right? And I was just gonna get there with the story and to wrap up with me and John. Like, we played, Street Fighter 3 was actually his game. It was short lived, but he won the big ones, the big tournaments that happened there. And Second Impact, I won most of those, but nobody really cared at that point because Alpha 3 was out now. Alpha 3
Yeah.
came out,
Of course.
and people were playing Alpha 3, and that one brought people back because this was a time where like the Tekkens and Virtua Fighters were making the splash. They were starting to take some of the Street Fighter 2 players away, because those games
Yeah.
look far more interesting and advanced, and like, oh man, graphics, and oh wow, that's crazy, right? So
3D
yeah,
graphics were insane back
dude,
then.
it was
Yeah.
insane
This is the
for
first
its
time we
time,
saw it.
dude. Freaking Sega
Yeah.
and Namco at the time, they were just
Namco.
dude, they were killing it, man, with all these like 3D games. So Alpha 3, and of course I put my all into this game, and the game wasn't even a year like in, it was like 7 months into the game. There was the
Yeah.
Alpha 3 World Championships, and let me tell you, so the Alpha 3 World Championships, the qualifiers in Japan, there were over like 10,000 players that
Yeah.
tried to
Whoa.
qualify for this thing. So there were like every single province and region in Japan, like they had their own single elimination tournaments everywhere, to a
That's a
culmination of
lot
like
of
the
players.
playoffs at the end, where Daigo
Holy
played Nuki in the grand finals, and Daigo perfects Nuki in the grand finals of
Wow.
that to be the national champion, right? And then he flies over. I'm sure at the time they didn't see any footage. Like, there was just, Japan was just so ahead. Like, there was no point, no reason, no curiosity to even, just fathom the idea of like, hey, let's go see what the US is doing. Or let's see what the EU
Yeah,
is doing,
yeah.
when their competition is crazy. Okay. So, and for us, we're kind of thinking the same thing because of our egos. We're like, yeah, we won these
Yeah.
tournaments
Yeah, of
here and there,
course.
blah, blah, blah. And, Daigo is, you probably heard the story so many times of that Alpha 3 World Championships, but just TLDR on this one, like he wins, right? And I'm salty, of
Yeah.
course. And it was really close. I was actually, very, very close to beating him.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, this was like the very first, like, official Capcom, world tournament. So
Yeah.
we had no data on each other, nothing, except he had more data on me than I had more data than me to him, because he saw my matches. He saw my matches. I had to not play V Ryu. That's how serious it was.
Ah.
Like, dude, like I know how,
Hiding
because
pick.
I knew how this works, because it was knowledge is power, right? If he saw what I
Yeah.
was doing, like, then there's an edge, right? Or likewise, if I saw what he was doing, then there's some kind of an edge. But no, like, it just his Via Kuma was just too crazy. It's things that we've never seen before, and you guys already know. Even Via Kuma is still top tier in Alpha 3 today. It's just,
Yes.
I'm like V Ryu, and I'm not even doing like optimal combos. I'm doing like broken resets and stuff. But it was truly my ground game that was impressive to the Japanese community, and that I almost took him out. So that's when the Japanese Street Fighter community started to like, okay, you know what? Maybe there are some like great players. They had no confidence in us in winning like anything. Even Nuki said too, like there's no way. Until I almost beat Daigo, then he said, if I happened to play him in the World Championships, he thought he would have lost too. So that's how dramatic the impact was, right? And then so that rivalry, of course, of me being salty, that I even said, I'll see you in the next Street Fighter, and which happened, dude. Like, it's like, it was just a time where I was starting to win everything, and I won everything in my all the big events that I've entered after like being propelled to like being the best in the country, to finally eventually losing, but to an international player. So I can't, it just, you can't just run it back, right? Because he's gone to Japan and, probably chilling on his yacht with, or something. But
with his Street Fighter money,
with his Street Fighter money, dude. So like, but no, they Japanese community was so impressed that they invited me for a rematch a few months later. So
nice.
That didn't really go so well, because TLDR on that one, they try to put American joysticks and everything into a Japanese cabinet. It just didn't work.
Oh, MOS levers? They put MOS levers for the American players. So you were playing on MOS. Like, everyone was playing on MOS back then.
Well, this was arcade
in America.
This was arcade. Well, are you talking about like, okay, so stick wise, the optimal sticks that I liked were Perfect 360s. This was before Hap bought them. Okay.
Okay.
These were the these were the peripheral manufacturers at the time. And I eventually played with convex buttons, not concave. And we finally started to relieve our hands from a lot of the mess that American
except John
arcades,
Choi.
had to John Choi. So, but anyways, we there was a tournament in Japan, and me and Choi went. We definitely couldn't play. We just got beat up with like the sticks, and of course everyone was disappointed, because they expected us to be in like the top 4 or whatever. And Daigo played this V Zangief player, and he lost, right? So it wasn't
even
so bad.
Daigo
like, we all
lost. Okay.
Wow.
We all lost, but still though, even though this was very historical, because we took that data back to the cannons. We're like, hey, like, if you guys run another Battle by the Bay or anything, like, you're gonna need a dedicated Japanese cabinet versus a dedicated American cabinet. Like, this just has to be it. You're gonna have to cater to exactly what they have at home, or this will not work. Because like, we learned our lesson, and they did that, right? They did that, when Boss came down, and for like B5 and stuff. And but that's just getting ahead of myself a little bit. But in regards to the rivalry stuff, the big one that happened between in the retro scene was the U.S. versus Japan. showdown after Battle by the Bay 4. And
Okay.
in order to qualify for Battle by the Bay 4, you had to have the most points out of several Street Fighter games. All right, I was team captain. I won. I got first and second in
Oh.
like all of them. I got
Okay.
second
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Marvel
No
2.
problem.
I got first
Yeah.
in like I got first in Alpha 2. I got second
Yeah.
in Alpha 3 to Choi. Choi beat me in Alpha 3. I think I got second in ST, and I got first and Third Strike. I got second. Yeah. So pretty much I got first and second across the board. I got the most points, right? And then Choi qualified, Watson qualified. So I don't know if you guys got a chance to see Bang the Machine.
No, I that's the documentary, right?
The
Is that
documentary, yeah.
available like publicly? I thought that
No,
was like kind of
it's
like
unreleased
only
because
played sometimes.
the raw footage
Yeah.
was destroyed in 9/11, and it had licensed music. So
Oh,
God.
yeah,
I see.
So
Okay.
the current like the only copy that they had was one with licensed music on it. All I know is that one, they definitely can't show to sell. Two, they're trying to work on a restoration version, so hopefully there's any update on that. Because
Okay.
you know,
That would be
technology.
awesome.
Yeah, hopefully. So that's all I know from that.
Yeah.
But so this international showdown happened with US versus Japan. Our best players from several Capcom games went to play Japan's best. So
Yep.
and this is where more hype happened, because it was important too, because the Japanese was still like, okay, they were coming off of like me almost beating Daigo, like their best player at the time, and he was still whipping ass in several games. So me and him were doing work in our regions the same exact
Yeah.
way.
Sure. Sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the Ken and Ryu of this thing, right? And
Yes.
Yeah.
we get over there,
Pretty much.
and it was crazy because the rules were heavily in their favor, because our team only had like 7 players, right? And we had to play every fighting game. Okay.
I see.
Versus their 35 players. And they only had to pick
Whoa.
yes, and they only had to play their best players per game had to play. There were no overlap.
What?
Ah,
Yes.
It's not just being outnumbered. You have to like play certain games while you're already kind of not your best form. You know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I mean?
You have to like multilingual. You know,
Yes.
when playing multiple games, you have to know
Yeah.
each game, and but those guys, they had a specialist for each
Okay.
of the games, and so yeah. How did that turn out? That
So you had
seems
the disadvantage.
that
All right,
seems
yeah.
obviously like a disadvantage.
Yeah, it was definitely a disadvantage. There was a lot of drama there, and like I'll save the juicy stuff for Bang the Machine whenever it comes out. But
Yeah.
excuse me. You know, we lost, but it wasn't by too much, but we did lose, and I scored the most points, even though I got beat up in in some games like Third Strike, and
Yeah.
you know, and so like but it was a great experience, because in America, in the US, and yeah, we're all guilty of this, but whenever an outsider or a rival that, you know, playing in your hometown, like you have the backing of your hometown from the US, like, yeah, you know, like we're gonna win, blah blah blah. In Japan, they're like, oh, like they were cheering for our wins. You know, they were just
Yeah.
cheering for good Street Fighter play, or just good fighting
Yeah.
game
Okay.
play. They were just very
Yeah, okay.
excited for us to be there and to play, and for the love of the game. You know, and that showed us
Yeah.
so much respect, and we are just honored to be there, and happy that, you know, they came out to this like beautiful like hall, like, okay, this is like in a big convention, but in one of the halls, and we didn't have that. Like, we
Right.
were still playing in dinky arcades and, you know, trading card places, and they had they had the stage. You know, this was
Yeah.
their presentation
Yeah,
was
the
like
presentation
crazy,
is
dude.
very nice, and I guess for them it's like a festival, right? A celebration kind of.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And we were just kind of blown away, man. They had a whole run of show, and Matsuda-san over there was still running game.
Good
Like
old
Oh,
Matsuda-san. Yes.
yeah, man, dude, that dude is a godsend to the
Hmm.
community in Japan. For many decades. So shout outs to him. He took care of us, man. And that we showed a lot of love to each other. We got to know the best players of certain games there. We loosened up Daigo. We were like making fun of him and like, hey, it was Daigo the Beast, right? And he just starts
yeah,
laughing.
yeah,
Like, it's like all these things just came together to like for the camaraderie, for the love of the game, because we love this so much. Win or lose,
yeah.
we just saw we were people. We were just like fans of the game. And
Yeah, I mean that's an
from
exciting moment to have like a international competition on that scale in the first place, right? Like we talked about, like nowadays it's just such a commonplace thing to have people all over the world traveling constantly to play each other. But I'm sure at that time it was a new and amazing thing, and I think people were just happy to see this kind of union between two countries' players and playing a game that everybody loves. And so that's that's kind of an interesting. View of the international competitive scene back then. But I guess now, like, I mean, there are some aspects. You have this idea of the welcoming Japanese like community. I guess it goes all the way back to that, where they treated you guys so well. And if you look in the light of like kind of the U.S. scene, where it's a little bit grimier with the
yeah,
whole like come to our turf, don't talk to the other people,
right.
USA chants and all that stuff. I guess there's a very big discrepancy there that you've noticed over the years. So I guess I kind of want to go forward into I guess more modern Street Fighter, but maybe it's not modern anymore. I don't know. Is Street Fighter 4 modern Street Fighter, or is that like is 09er OG now?
I would say Street Fighter 4 and up is modern Street Fighter for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Street Fighter 4 is kind of I kind of like to call it the content era of Street Fighter, or it's when like streaming was like kind of blowing up, and Spooky was doing his thing, and all these matches were broadcast to everyone, and this was the start of like now you can kind of watch games on the internet, and you can watch people's matches. You were talking about how like Daigo had actually seen your play before the Alpha 3 match that you guys had. And nowadays it's like, oh, if you're not watching your opponents play on YouTube or whatever, you're not doing your job as a pro player. You have to like study because it's all out there. You can't hide it. Nowadays, like you have like an online system where you can see their online matches, and now people are making fake accounts
There's
to
no
like hide
choice
it.
for you to like not have it out there. It's just always there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So this is kind of the internet age of. I mean, there's internet in the I guess FGC dark ages too, if you want to call it that. But I guess starting with Street Fighter 4, it was so prevalent. Now you have content creators. Now you have cross counter TV, and you have like these figureheads, these kind of influencers, if I guess to use a more modern term. But so how was this new era of Street Fighter different? I mean, I guess we can kind of lump it as Street Fighter 4 and after versus I guess the retro era, maybe even all the way up to the dark ages. What are the biggest things that you noticed about this era, good and bad?
So Street Fighter 4 era was definitely the modern take on Street Fighter, because there was just a bunch of new players that were starting. This was their first Street Fighter. They didn't know how to play the game, right? There was just there, and Street Fighter 4. If you were privileged enough to live in a hot spot where an arcade would, get a Japanese cabinet shipped to their, then your region was ahead, obviously, because knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And even then, right, when players would just spend $1, Street Fighter 4 was $1 to play at the time when it just came out. Of course, these things were 20 grand to get.
Very expensive.
Yeah. And there was just a lot of players flailing around and not knowing what to do. It's glimpses of back in the days in the arcade playing Street Fighter 2. They didn't know what to do, flailing around. There was a little bit of robust mechanics in the beginning before I got to the craziness, right? Because we're all
Yeah.
green. I thought it was a huge step back in regards to how robust it could be, because we're talking about the era of Alpha 3, right? Where you have all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
customs and air, crouch canceling and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, so what is this
Yeah.
all? It's grounded again. It's like Street Fighter 2, but you got these like revenge or ultras, and you have focus attacks. So you have things that you can't just play neutral for too long. You have to watch out.
Yeah, it disrupts the neutral a bit. Yeah,
It-
like a focus attack is definitely like
Yep.
yes, an
Yeah,
absorbing
so
move.
neutral
so
breaker.
so there's definitely mechanics that help newer players, but inevitably, you know how it went. Once the best players figured out these mechanics, they were
Yep.
just that much better than the rest, and with the one frame links and all the other craziness people found, right? Because Street Fighter 4 wasn't, I don't think it was intentionally to be played this this. I would say I don't think the developers in the beginning had the intentions of Street Fighter 4 being played with like everybody learning one frame links. Like they were just, you got to custom, or you got to focus,
Or like a
and you go for your
multi-layered
medium
option
mediums
select
combo,
and
right?
those kind of stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like once people started to figure out like you can you can plink to help your combo structures,
Yeah, select blinks.
and you can OSs with all this. It
Yep.
just became such a technical game. But it
Yeah.
took a while,
Yeah.
right? It took a while, and Japan was doing this early because they had Street Fighter 4 in like the local
Several months earlier than
Yeah, I mean,
the
that
States.
there's no contest if you don't have option selects developed yet in your region, right? Because if somebody's playing with option selects and you're not, then basically it's like playing rock paper scissors, but they got an option that does like rock and paper both in one turn. It's just
Yeah.
crazy, right? So I guess USA it took a while for them to figure out what's going on, because you can't see the option select. It just looks like you're a genius or something, right? It's like, how do you know that to sweep me on my backdash? Well, that's just a Ryu option select, right? But
So-
it must have been like voodoo magic at that time.
Yeah. So we knew, like, right, the game had a bunch of new players. They didn't know what they were doing, and I was just kind of mopping the floor with these people, because just pure fundamentals and figuring out like the system mechanics before
Still
most people.
important.
But
Yeah.
So then I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna host these sessions, right? And they happen to fall on a Wednesday, and
Yes.
it inevitably became Wednesday night fights. Okay.
Oh, yes, the famous Wednesday night fights. Yeah.
Yes. So there wasn't a tournament yet. It was just casuals, and and later on it became a tournament simulator, because we added a stream there, and there's a lot of things happening at once. And I rekindled with like a good old school friend of mine named Jimmy Wynn, and we haven't. He was actually the godfather of direct feed recording from arcade cabinets camcorder to like putting it on like a tape or eventually like some hard drive. And he was taking footage from
Yeah.
Southern Hills Golfland. Like he would take tournament footage from way back then, and he was one of the first ones to do it. And then he inevitably
Nice.
put these footage on SRK. So he talked to
Yeah,
Tom
that's right.
Tony Cannon to put some of that stuff up. So he met up with me during my sessions, and he liked what I was doing with the community. And I never really ran any tournaments or any community gatherings until then. Out of all this
Oh, that's your
time,
first time.
I
Yeah,
was
okay.
good at getting people to go to a tournament, right? But
Yeah.
I never hosted anything until like.
Well, that's a great skill to have
Yeah.
to host it. If you know how to bring people in, then the next step, could be hosting, right? Okay.
Yeah, so I
Naturally.
mean, I tried some hosting before Street Fighter 4 came out, because there was still like some tournaments during like the dark eras, still super terrible, and I had Afro Legends wanted to learn, and we played so many hours on it so he can be on his A game. And then I try to host other little things at different LAN centers when LAN centers started to pop around. Like I
Yeah.
was just curious how it was just gatherings. They weren't like I don't consider me like hosting because I didn't bring out my equipment. I didn't set
Sure.
up like my own venue and anything. But anyways, so
Yeah.
yeah, Jimmy liked what I was doing, and he said, "Hey, we should talk to see like what do you want to do with this, right?" And he was like a very smart dude. I mean, obviously, he still is. He's still like a genius, but like just telling me like, "Hey, man, like, what do you want to do with this, man? You just like want to train people, or like, what's the deal?" I'm like, "Yeah, like, I think this region sucks, dude. It's just how it was. Like, we were like the best. Now it's like we can't. It's really hard to find anybody that is like to train." So I
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
took it
Yeah.
upon this to like get people together that went to like these arcades that had Street Fighter 4. The console version came out, so of course everybody's gonna play the console version. It was still hot. It was really really hot, and people came. And then he goes, "Okay, well, you ever think about hosting like tournaments and getting your feet wet there, getting like more visibility somehow?" And he's just throwing all this like
Yeah.
words like that. I didn't
TO
understand
terms.
like
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
like visibility and like getting people like his mind was like still from back then like, hey, if I were to
Hmm.
show how good Southern Hills Gotham was by this footage, maybe we can do the same thing now
Oh, it's like
with
content
streaming
promotional
coming
stuff.
around,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got a crew, yeah, that was they used to go to our sessions, and we would put a stream together. This was all on like not even just it was on Ustream at the time, right? It was like
Yep.
Yeah. I remember
old
you
I
stream.
remember
Yeah. The
that.
yeah.
watermark's still on some OG footage. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. It was like it was on this, and then Wednesday Night Fight started like just still as like the first half hour was just me giving a tutorial with a mic in my hand, like, hey, this is Bison or this is Ryu, and this is how I go about it. And I just got kind of frustrated doing it like that because I would have somebody set it up for me, and I was my own commentator, and then I have to put the mic down, and then I would play, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this just
Yeah.
I didn't. Didn't really work out well. And James Chen used to go to these things a lot, and then I'm like,
Hmm.
I look around, I'm like, hey James, can you do me a favor, dude? He's all, hey Vi, what's up, man? I'm like, hey dude, can you do me a favor and like, can you tell uh, like the viewers like what I'm doing, because you articulate this stuff better than I can, and you used to write these game facts. I'm just kind of buttering them up and stuff, but I'm like, and he goes,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
do you really think people would like that? And I'm like, yeah, dude, just try
Oh,
it.
man.
Just try it, dude. And
Yeah.
I'm like, he's like, okay, all right. Well, what Valle is trying to do here with Ryu, because he used to play a Ryu, and he would tell little stories and
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah.
so he would do this for like a month or like 3 weeks straight, right? And the chat
Yeah.
would just hate him.
Hmm.
They would be like, "What is this like announcer crap? What is this stupid crap? Like, get this thing out here. Let's put
Yeah.
Valle back on, right?" And
Yeah.
then one week, like James would message me, he goes, "Hey Vi, I'm so sorry, man, I can't make it this week." I'm like, "Dude, that's all right, man. Just come, come when you can. Really appreciate everything you do." He's like, "Okay, man." And the week that he doesn't come, guess what the fuck happens? Hey,
We gotta
What?
wonder. Yeah.
where's James? What happened to James, guys? Like, where's James? So
I
Oh.
told you these stream viewers, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never
like-
trust them.
No. Can't.
well, I mean, it taught us a lot of things, dude. It taught us a lot. It taught us
Yeah.
like, you gotta put in your lickings, right? Like a lot of people did not
Yep.
know James Chen. James Chen was one of our like good players back in the days too. I met him during the Alpha 2 era. He used to
Yeah.
he went to UCLA, right? I went to his arcade over
Wow.
there, right? I used to play with him and
Yeah.
UCLA Bruner and all those guys. I remember. But anyways, like he just we always had a great relationship, and just to see
Yeah, so that-
the
is that-
community, like the new, it's like, so this is the new and old community, right? So they're
Yeah.
looking at this, they respect me because they can learn off of what I'm saying. So classes in session. But when somebody that's
Yeah.
lesser known talks, there's kind of like, hey, who the hell is this guy? No, put Valle back on, right? And I get that. But
Yeah.
once you see the cycle happening, like, oh wait, he's actually explaining it pretty well, probably better than Alex, or and it lets Alex focus on the game a bit more, and then he's playing matches and he's talking about the matches. So we get to see more Alex playtime while somebody that actually knows what he's talking about.
They start
maybe
to
this can
understand
work.
too. Yeah.
So this is
Yeah,
like the birth of like how we actually from our region how we handled commentary, and this is like some of the things that that Jimmy saw and that he was interested in. He's like, yeah, keep doing stuff, things that work, try it. If it doesn't work, do something else, man. It's cool. Like that's what he really liked. And
he's got the producer mindset.
And so we did this as Wednesday Night Fights for a hot minute.
Wednesday Night Fight seems kind of like almost like some of the origins of the new modern era of the FGC, right? I mean, just having someone like the James Chen origin story, just jumping on the mic, and I guess it comes from necessity, but at the same time, people realize, oh, this is good. We want this, and then we just keep on doing it. And now James Chen is like in the game, literally, like in Street Fighter 6 now, right? It just starts at Wednesday Night Fights and then like ends up
now inside Street Fighter
in
6.
the game. But I guess I don't know, like I'm sure you've talked about this a lot, but I mean, one of the big moments in Wednesday Night Fights in terms of like streaming and like getting the name out there and stuff was the grudge match between Low Tier God and Viscount, right? So I mean, I'm just talking about this from like I'm sure everyone's seen that moment.
I was a spectator of that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's but the thing is, like, from like a broadcasting perspective, like it is, you get the place known. Now Wednesday Night Fights is now like that's where that happened.
I also wonder, like, obviously I don't want to like say like people wanted this or not wanted this. It's more to do with if you're running the platform where things can be known, good or bad, like where do you find the balance kind of thing, right? Like, did you, producers of the event, like kind of predict, okay, this is gonna like be sick, or it's gonna be it's a blow up, like, so like I wonder what went through your mindset when this thing was about to become a thing between those two players.
I mean, you couldn't have expected what they were saying. It was unscripted, right? It was just kind of like, I mean, how did you feel at that moment? Was it, I mean, were you kind of worried, or was
and also like, where do you draw the line in like, okay, you cannot go that far, or even if you were to let it that far in terms of like, say, in respect to freedom, like, where do you like draw the boundaries, right? Yeah.
Well, so those are good questions. So like, so think about everything that's come out that's been new. It's kind of been riding a certain wave. Okay. Street Fighter 4 arcades are pretty much dead. Okay. And people are playing, Street Fighter 4 at home, online, not rollback, but delay based.
The era of Xbox Live days.
There's no arcade to go to. That's the main thing. So the first need is a weekly show, weekly event that is not existent anywhere, in the world. There was nobody had 2008, 2009 Street Fighter 4 content at all. We did. We were the first ones to do it, and Jimmy saw
everyone
this.
around the world tuned in.
That's right.
So Jimmy saw this, and like he just knew that like we just gotta try different things, and people are gonna watch because we're the first to do it, and inevitably turn into Level Up, right? Like that's right, when we kind of put all of our thinking caps, like how do we make this a fun experience, and like let's structure it better, right? Instead of just like going raw all the time. And there'll be times to do that, but and then just to start developing, right? And once in 2010 when Level Up was born, our company, that's when Wednesday Night Fights, like we had an intro, James Chan was more established now. But it was still in its infancy, right? But it was just, there's overlays, right? There's no like commercials yet or like ads or anything, but it was just, there was some program you would see like, okay, so the way that Via has it structured is where we have this tournament. It was a tournament simulator, right? We would have the best players people wanted to see right away. We would only stream that pool, and the rest of the pools, if they made it out of their pool, they get to go into the big boy pool, and then the people that did bad in the big boy pool will get booted to like
I heard
the
about this.
non-stream
Oh.
pool.
Yes. So
Okay.
it's like a motivation drive. Mm.
Yeah. So what this did, right? Not only did the people at home get to watch the best players play all the time, the players around our region, they wanted to come to get their 15 minutes. They wanted to be on that stream. They wanted to showcase their skill. Like it just became addicting for everyone, right? And we were looking around, dude. It was a packed house in a garage, my friend's garage, SHL BMX house. It was like we packed it up, 64 people every time to his garage, and we just kept trying things until it did become a tournament, and now people knew of a certain structure to watch. When we turn it on, there would be probably a first to 10 with me and somebody else, and then we get the tournament going, and people would see, high level matches, and I would already know with that many weeks going in, I knew who the best players was, who the best matches were to probably see. So I knew this from the get go, and then more regions were starting to do this too from their region. East Coast started to do this, right? And that's where like the Spookies came out and started to do it for various games. It wasn't just Street Fighter; it was doing for the anime stuff, right? So like, it just every region started to pop. Like once they started to figure out how to stream, because it was still this was a bigger blow up back then because we were working with like what 1K bit rate, not even that 700
Yeah.
kp.
This was like the 480p quality days. Yeah.
It was really bad, right? It was, but it started to snowball into like, okay, if we can do this into like a garage setting, like we have to level up to the next event where we're gonna host our first big event. That it's not SCR yet, right? It was we called it Project Blocks because we held a tournament at Dave and Buster's, and we called it Project Blocks because of the plaza that it was in was at the time was called the Block of Orange. So so we held Street Fighter 4 and Tekken 6 at the time, and we so having a weekly stream also helped us with local peripheral companies and like from Hori would they would see this. So some fighting game fans from Hori would see this and be like, yo, like it would be awesome to partner with you guys. And this is also when Mark Man used to work at Mad Cats, and Mad Cats would support our events too. And like we would they would send us sticks, and people were like, oh wow, there's sponsorship with these tournaments now, right? And even though sponsorships wasn't a new thing, but now you had a stream with sponsorships and top level play, and things were evolving, right? We were just doing what we can, and you know how it goes from there. But like it just the infancy part of it was really important, and the structure, and most of that came from the team. Like I didn't even know how to stream yet. I was still on the hosting, bringing players in, but it was mainly like Jimmy and like AJ Papa, Frank. There's a lot of the old school level up guys that like really put like their stream ideas. Like, hey, what if we did this shot? Where if we put the camera here? What if we did, instead of like one camera, we do two cameras, and doing two cameras was pretty crazy at the time.
At the time,
at the time, phenomenal. Trying to find a capture card and computer that strong to do like two, head-to-head footage, and then even one more crowd cam if possible. So
that'll
it was
be the luxury setup.
Yep. And as all that developed, like you can see every tournament, pretty much we're proud to have made the blueprint to weekly events and how the structure would happen. Like you would look at our earliest stuff and you would look at today's, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same concept. I mean, it's
I learned a lot from literally watching the level up streams, and I built my dreams based on it too. And like,
yeah.
eventually I get to work on many events and such, and like it's all thanks to VIA show, really.
Yeah, it's you see it in so many different broadcasts, and I think some of the FGC stuff has leaked onto other communities as well, right? This kind of blueprint for tournaments, and I'm wondering, I mean, nowadays the landscape is a little bit different. So in those times, I guess the word esports wasn't quite being thrown around in the FGC so much. So I guess in the Street Fighter V era, that's when kind of the term was used, and of course there was kind of a lot of there's some controversy behind it, and people were kind of like, oh, we don't like this. FGC is not esports, and but it's kind of during that time. It was kind of this new thing to have, there's new kind of sponsors and stuff like that. And then there's people that were not part of the FGC that were doing things for the better or worse. There are people that were, calling shots that, wasn't a part of any of this when it was starting and forming. But everyone kind of had a different reaction to it, right? People were like, well, maybe we can make this work. Some people were like, screw this. I don't know. During that time, like, how did you see that period of time? I guess maybe starting Street Fighter V and later. Like, how has this affected Level Up and what you guys are doing? And I guess what are kind of the pros and cons of this kind of new landscape of fighting game content?
And developing towards that topic, then we still gotta kind of see the era between the infamous match between the two popular people that we mentioned before, because this was way before Super Arcade days, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
the story you told us.
Okay.
Yeah. So build us through it.
Yeah. So Wednesday Night Fights was definitely a household name at the time, and people are loving it. And but like, of course, with every show, inevitably it just, to some it becomes, oh, it's too late now, or there's other shows to watch that have different personalities and they might like them.
Sure.
And, it was starting to, not saying it was becoming oversaturated, not even the word at all, but players were more comfortable. Some viewers were more comfortable watching other streams, and Spooky streams got really popular, and they built the household name for themselves. And I mean, Spooky took care of the entire East Coast. I mean, his story, man. Like, shout out to him.
Yeah.
So
legend.
So what inevitably happened was, like, we started to run out of like commentators. We just pick whoever was available to do it, that could come out, and everybody was doing it for free, right? We're all doing it for free. Nobody was getting paid to do this.
Community
right?
effort.
We weren't even making money off of Wednesday Night Fights then. It was just barely to pay venue fee and to buy games and more systems, right? So but anyways, like, there was a point where people are like just saying, Wednesday Night Fights is becoming too, like, this esports, this like professionalism is like too much, like we're falling asleep over here. And then I'm thinking, like, dude, like, we can do that, like, we can do Raw, I can do whatever, but like like, all right, look, you guys want something that's completely organic and raw, I get you something. So we produced these events called the grudge matches, and the concept was, there's matches in Wednesday Night Fights that people don't see because I mean, they're not really like notable players. However, their personalities and their saltiness is so dope, right? Like, I noticed, like, because I know every single
the
player
energy,
right? Like, so I would get like matches from the earliest ones would be like a Bushin style versus like
Mark Teddy
or Mark Teddy or something, and they were just like the perfect, just throwing shots matches at each other, and I would like instigate it, right? I would go up there and I'd be like, hey, you don't really make top 8 or you don't make the ends, but like, You're not bad at the game, but like I would just talk crap to him too. But this other guy thinks that you're trash. You know, what do you got to say about that? So now all of a
Oh.
sudden everybody's vested because I'm putting them on the
Yeah.
spot. It's me this time. I'm
Yeah.
instigating because I know who's who, right? There's no
Yeah,
escaping
yeah.
this. But now they see that they
Yeah.
get a opportunity to go play on the stream now in like a first to 5 or a first to 10. So this happens with a couple of, matches so we can test. And now whoever was commentating, it didn't matter. Like we were all having a good time again, right? It was just another thing we did on the side.
That's the point.
And then the Wednesday Night Fights regular programming happened afterwards, right? So as these first few grudge matches came about, there happened to be a storyline with this guy named Low Tier God. And he would be, he would have a chip on his shoulder being this like online god of Street Fighter 4. But anytime he would lose, he would have a rant or like didn't believe that you were actually better than him and whatnot. So we invited him to come out, and to settle some of these matches. And of course, he just came out and he was so entertaining. He was just everything he did at home, he did on the stream. He had his whole like low tier God, right? He had all that.
Yeah.
He would talk his trash. Everybody would see this. So like it was electrifying. It was dope, right? And he played against Alex Myers, and Alex Myers is a technical freak. Of course he beat him, but
Oh yeah.
like people still had a good time, right? And Low Tier God handled it.
Yeah.
He did pretty well. So this escalated to like an actual real beef between Low Tier God and Viscount. And if you guys seen that one, and they were just talking trash for the longest time, and we eventually got them on. And remember, this built up. The main thing here is build up. You gotta have a storyline,
story driven
and
content.
This wouldn't happen without like the players. And I thought like, okay, like I can build a little side programming to hype up or ramp up the viewership for Wednesday Night Fights, because people are falling asleep. Now all of a sudden people are fucking, all right, I'll stay up till 4 a.m. to watch this, right? So like, but I wasn't, I mean, those type of programming, like you got to think in the big picture wise. And then Jimmy would have these conversations with me all the time, be like, hey man, like, I understand, what you're doing, and it's fun and everything, but like, if we're, we have to think about, what we want to do with this big picture wise, kind of like when I asked you back then. Now, we have, we have some momentum with us. Is this a type of programming we should put all the time, or can we just like have some one-offs here? So it was just a lot of that. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, if it's too raw, and then we're trying to pursue like partnerships, it's probably going to be the hardest, the hardest sell, right? Like,
absolutely. I mean,
and then, and in other words, like it worked out. So like, the cool thing about LTG and Viscount, right? Shout outs to them, and I thank them many times for their time and what they did with this. We actually that segment was licensed to Ridiculousness TV show. So we licensed that
Wow. Okay.
to national television. And
wow, that's incredible.
that happened.
Apparently they played that for several seasons because it was that dope to watch. So
it's amazing because like you see that clip in like compilations on YouTube channels or sites that have nothing to do with fighting games or anything like that. But that moment was just so raw that
it would go on like top 10s and stuff.
But see, I guess that kind of touches upon the question of I'm sure Jimmy had talked about with you a lot. The idea of like how much do we want to focus on like just raw entertainment versus like the integrity of matches, right? And that goes into this modern FGC question of like is it, how important is like a good Street Fighter match these days and uploading that, right? Versus something like like a entertaining or informative fighting game video. I can say this because I do Core gaming, right, which is more on the content side. I'm not that great at these games compared to like the top players and stuff, of course. So I guess we're in this new era, and we'd had a little talk with KBR about this a little bit, and I think KBR kind of feels like very much like the era of like top level play has been greatly diminished, or the importance of that
over
kind of
time,
thing over
yes.
time. Yeah, and so how is that affecting the way you approach content? I mean, I know you still do. We met at the Hawaii Suite. At the last Evo, and you're still rocking these. It was a Third Strike tournament because I guess they did Third Strike that year for the special
legacy game
main
at
stage
Evo?
tournament. Yeah, the legacy game, and you're still rocking these like high level matches with good players. And you're always. I remember, you were looking for good players in the hotel suite too, like to go up on the stream. And so very much you're still very focused on like good matches but then how do you square that with some of the entertainment aspects? I mean, you guys got a taste of having the Viscon LTG moment blow up, so it must affect. You must be thinking about it like whenever you approach FGC broadcast content.
So times have changed, man. As you can see, like. Is that the type of content we can just get away with these days? Or most people, right? Like it's just it's a very different world where we live now.
Yes,
so you have to pay attention to where we are. Okay, we're much older now. We're more seasoned, and in an event like Evo, right, where people are paying thousands of dollars to be there. Yes, we want to entertain people, but our priority will always fall in line with the players. Like if they're traveling to play high level matches, we don't want to waste their time. I want to connect them to who I want to connect with, right? And if it's entertaining, it's entertaining. If it's not, like, hey, look, you know what? Like this is the type of show that we're not trying to like go out left field off of, right? Because we don't want to put them in a bad light or have anything that could mess up their experience, versus like when we're at an arcade in a local, there's a lot of breathing room because everybody knows everybody there, right? Like it's a different type of like just environment, and I think there's room for everything. It's just it's how you package it, right? It's how you package it, and I'm still a big fan of the organic content. Okay, whatever happens at that moment, you just capture it as is, and if it takes off, it takes off, right? It's just like music, like what you're singing about at one time, and it just touches somebody's soul, and that's all you care about, sure. And maybe there's another song in there that you didn't really think much of, but all of a sudden that's a hit. Like it's the same thing. Like you don't know until it's in the eye of the beholder, right? They're just going to like consume it. They're going to look at the time. Is there a storyline? No. Like now we have so much content. You can't please everyone, like you can do meme content all the time, and that's going to get boring after a while. You're going to do high level tournament matches. Absolutely. That's going to get boring. Everything gets boring. It's just like, it's really hard to just, we would be millionaires, right? If we can tell what's gonna freaking sell, right? It's just
what the thing. There's room for all sorts of content, which is why you see all this kind of stuff like taking off. But I guess like Kevin and I had a really kind of an interesting conversation. We kind of had this kind of crazy thought experiment where we're thinking, well, what if like in the future, let's say fighting game tournaments and fighting game skill level and who's good at these games and finding out who's the best. That idea, that competitive aspect, could there be an FGC world where that is almost completely gone? Like you go to let's say some big fighting game tournament in the future, and that's like now the biggest one, and it's a very small little corner for the tournament, and nobody cares about it. Yet everything else is about like convention merch, and like how important is that the competitive aspect of fighting games to this whole media world in the FGC and the FGC by itself. I mean, it started with the competitive stuff. If you look back at the old footage, people who just wanted to see footage of like John Choi playing, right, or Alex Valle playing. That was like all that existed back then because they got the camcorders. People were selling, move lists and stuff, right, or fatality lists. But nowadays, it's like because, like you said, there's so much competition. There's so much other kinds of content. Can you imagine a world where the core of what made the FGC, which is the competitive fighting game aspect, just gets sidelined so much? And then if that's the case, where do you see yourself in this? Would you just be like, okay, I'm not part of this anymore if this is if they're not going to have that? Or I mean, would you find some silver lining into it? Yeah, this is kind of like a hypothetical thing. I don't think it'll ever come to that, but just like to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's many ways to look at this. Where we are right now in the content creation world is, I mean, content creation has been around for a long time, but now that there's so many like talented people that can create wonderful stories. As long as there's compelling stories here and there, the tournament scene will always be prevalent because people want to see their regions, right? It's always goes back to what region is better, and their favorite players because of the fandom. You grew up with the game. You have the like many beautiful memories with it. As long as you can build, you know, or work with like a league, or national, to local scene, to highlight the players that are coming up. You're gonna want to watch how they fare in the finals, and that will never that will never go out of style, no matter how badly you put it. Because now we're just looking for, like, for instance, now, CPT season is almost done. Now we're waiting for Capcom Cup.
Yeah.
The hype train for that. We want to see those players play, right? Like, and we will always want to see those type of players play. And then when CPT is done, Rebel Kumite, right? Invitational with some of the best players all over the world. We're gonna want to see them play, right? As long as there is continued cultivation of the region's best players, it will never go out of style.
Yeah.
Okay. Once that vehicle stops and nobody really cares, then that's kind of where we're gonna have to make like meme videos and little clips and stuff
This
like
dystopian
that.
internet future. Yeah.
Could you imagine
just
Core A gaming channel full of memes?
Oh, we're kind of. I mean, it has some. It's in the longer video.
Tell
But,
the story. Yeah.
Well, it's I would say, the tournament scene, like, just going from the beginning of our conversation, right? Like how I got into the tournament scene, or you guys got into the tournament scene, is there's a long, rich story behind it.
Yes.
And some people started with Street Fighter 2, some people started with Street Fighter 6. There's always a good story to tell. Okay. I think now in modern days, we have to get better. We have to be better storytellers for it to be interesting. Just putting up a rank stream
Yes.
like every day,
Yeah.
it's harder to to get viewership unless like you can make it entertaining, right?
Yeah.
And then even weekly streams, like there's some that are really good, and then there's some like that are just not people don't have not enough visibility. So these are the struggles that we had too, right? We as Wednesday Night Fights, we had from like the best viewership to like now there's a lot of other streams doing the same thing, and we're kind of like neck and neck, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's becoming better storytellers and doing better things.
Yeah.
And that's good for the scene. That's good. That shows us there's progression. That shows us that there's people that are willing to take the necessary risks to make our tournament lives better, to make our viewing better, to the platforms that we play on, Like we've been pushing PC for the longest time before everybody knew about the hertz and stuff. Like we
Yeah.
did it with Alienware at Wednesday Night Fights,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Before anybody was talking about this, right?
Yeah.
We were the first ones to also push online gaming. Like we designed the online tours for CPT, TWT, Dragon Ball Fight. We designed it for
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
And everyone is, obviously the regions have gotten more vast and bigger and everything, but because we had passion to do that, we had passion to grow every single scene that we can see across the world, because there's always a great story to tell.
I really want to hear more because I know you do want to, like just like you said, you're a great storyteller. I believe in that, and I wouldn't be able to confidently say that I followed all your stories and like your journey, but it definitely has inspired a lot of people, and I'm one of them. I've met you at the Santa Ana venue. I've said hello to you at many events. I started watching streams like Wednesday Night Fights, and those are my form of entertainment. And then like it built my life and career almost. Comparatively, maybe not like the greatest career I had, but I'd say I had a fairly enjoyable and getting close to the dreams that I kind of thought of, thanks to like your pioneership of these events and presentations of what a fighting game could do to many people, and the importance of content, where Gerald did mention, like nowadays there's so many videos, so many type of media. They can be like as short as a minute or two, like an hour long content, but there can be like an hour long video with no content as well, because of, like you said, there are so many nowadays. So the importance of storytelling is definitely like inspiring for me as well. That
I mean, this whole podcast and everything, I hope the people listening get inspired as well. There's a lot of cool stories about perseverance, and I'm sure you have so many stories. I mean, it's the Alex Valle, right?
Yeah. I'd love to have you here next time.
Yeah, if there's another time that calls for it, I mean, we'd love to ask you again. But I think any shout outs you might want to have on the podcast?
Well, just start off with shout outs to you guys, man. And Korea is definitely like one of the meccas of esports in general. Like for so many different games in so many decades, and the whole esports movement was inspired by what Korea was doing.
StarCraft.
So we'll start with
you
that.
lived the StarCraft era
sure,
too, I
right?
believe.
Yeah.
And then like we have awesome content creators and players, and you guys, like, dude, Corey gaming content is like, I don't know, man, like the amount of blood, sweat, and tears he put in each one of those videos. I look at it and
Lots of tears.
I'm watching like I'm watching an actual like TV program. I'm like, all right, let's see this commercial. This,
I'm sure
like,
Gerald appreciates it a
this
lot. Yeah.
well put together. Like if we ever put a video on, dude, like you're like somebody in the world messed up, or like, or you found something that we have to look at.
Okay.
Like you're saving the world somewhere.
Thank you
Like,
you so much.
If you it's kind of how we see your videos. Oh man, is it a good video? Is it like something we should watch out for? Is it the end of the world for fighting games? What are we doing?
Yeah. No, thanks. That means a lot coming from you.
See, even Alex watches your show, man.
Yeah, no,
like,
that means a lot. Like it really does. And no, that's why I keep doing it, because people appreciate it, and it's it's awesome. I like I like to feel that it's helped somebody, and just like this podcast hopefully will, and everything that you've done for the FGC. You've been doing this forever, right? You're probably the godfather at this point. Like I think you're been doing this probably longer than almost anyone. It's good to see you're still active and stuff, because a lot of people they have gone to do other things, and that's cool too, of course. Like, I mean, like, yeah, Tomo Ohira, like he won and he went out, and that was cool. And like, but yeah, then there's people that go the full long range of it, and yeah, it's cool to see that there are people on that end of the spectrum too. So,
Yeah, and of course, I want to also say, like, shout outs to everyone that has attended any of our events or watched any of our events. You guys have helped us, with how FGC legacy was built and to where it is now. Like there's great people that are progressing the scene out there. Like TNS guys, right? They're doing God's
Oh, yeah.
work on every single day
Oh, yeah.
out there, right?
Great crew.
And every other locals that are still pumping out, even
Yeah.
though we're in the online world where it's harder to convince like a lot of people to come out because the netcode's so good. Shout outs to you guys.
Yeah.
Like it's I think it humanizes us to go out and do this, because we can grind so many matches, but like do we feel the same impact?
Yeah.
No,
I'm with you.
You gotta talk think about.
I'm completely with you on that one. All right. Everyone, Alex Valle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll
thanks.
have him very soon in the next one of the episodes. But for the formality of the show, thank you so much.
All right. Peace.
Thank you guys.